College football is back, and we're back live on the big mountain.
I think I hear a ghost. No, it's my good friend Steve back in studio. I was a little lost without you, and you know what I did a lot of? I talked really fast and I got really excited, and I didn't have you here to
rein you back in.
Calm me down. But you're here tonight. Hey, welcome back to the mountain. I know we got a great live chat already going. A lot of our normals and a lot of Mountain West and PAC fans. And yes, we will be talking about the Mountain West and the PAC, the litigation, UNLV, Sluka. I should have worn my frickin' Wally World shirt because it's frickin' Wally World out there.
I go away for a week and the whole world goes to hell.
What'd you do?
I was up at State College for work. Got to eat some cheesesteaks and drink some beer with a few Penn State players and do some work stuff. So it was fun.
Well, I'm glad you're back.
Yeah.
Because you can calm me down. So, hey, with that, first of all, I got a full brew, and I got to milk this sucker because this one might be a little long if we really get into it here a little bit later. As our viewers know, Steve, I have done several standalone episodes because of the silliness that has gone on. I'm sure everybody has seen them. I did one Monday night. I did a follow-up last night. We're going to do some more today. And just FYI, everybody, I got a late invite today to join the guys on, 365 Sports. So 365 Sports did a live show today. I called in. It was about 5:45 Eastern. I can clip the link. I'll maybe put something up there. They asked me to come on. John Wilner was on right before me. They were talking to John about the PAC, and they were talking to John about everything else. And I then came on the phone, and I spieled my guts for about 12 to 15 minutes.
Love it.
But it was great. I really appreciate their invite. So go say hi to those guys. Smoke, I think is his name. I'm forgetting his first name. I didn't write it down. It's had me all kinds of behind, but I got the invite. I had to say yes. And then I did another video, and then we're doing this. And you know what I need, Steve?
Well, either coffee or beer, or just
I need beer, and I need you to give me your picks so I can just relax. Well, I can listen to some locks. I can win some money on Saturday, and then I'll get all excited again.
Well, JY's been holding down the fort. Honestly, you appear to be one of the foremost experts in the country on the Mountain West and the PAC. What's going on? And honestly, when we first started this thing, we wanted to be Big Ten and Mountain West because we felt like the Mountain West wasn't getting enough love and coverage.
That's right.
And all of a sudden this week, things blow up, and you're right there to keep our mountain dwellers informed. And you've done a great job this week.
And I've been doing a lot of Xting the past 2 days, and that's where 365 Sports actually, got me. They DM'd me, and they saw some of my more recent tweets. I put out a really good one. Actually, it's funny. My tweet was also read on another podcast live yesterday. Mr. Flugar decided to use one of my tweets, and he read one of my tweets. It was about the Mountain West exit fees and dissolution, because that's a lot of the smoke, the dissolution. So I tried to lay it out how this would happen, how the Mountain West would potentially dissolve. So he read that. We did this. Who's Hot Hambo? Oh, Steve's back. He missed you. Oh, Hot Hambo loves you.
Yeah.
All right. So, hey, are we ready to get into picks? Are you guys ready to get into picks?
Let's go. I'm ready for some Big Ten football. I'm ready for some picks. There's some exciting games going on. Are we ready to go?
Let's go. Let me hook it.
Okay.
To clip it, and we're going to go here, everybody. So, here we go. All right. It is week 5. We are finally getting into a lot more in-conference play. Big Ten, Mountain West, PAC. We're going to start with the Big Ten. If you're new to the channel, we pick every Big Ten game. We pick every Mountain West game. We also pick the Beavs, the Cougs, and the Seminoles. Yep. Steve's going to start with the Big Ten and the Seminoles. Yep. We're going to go to me with the Mountain West and the PAC picks, so the Beavs are off. So I only have to pick the Cougs, and the Cougs are playing the Mountain West. So it's really easy for me this week. So, hey, with that, let's get to our picks. Steve, I know you've got some locks. I've got some locks. We've been doing really well on our locks. Let's make our viewers some money. Go for it.
We're coming out of the gate hot and heavy right away. Washington traveling across the country to Rutgers. I'm taking Rutgers to cover the 2.5 points, and I'm making that this week's first Big Mountain ice cold lock.
Is this maybe the second or third week in a row you've just come out hot?
Boom.
You're throwing locks
Boom.
like they're hot.
Boom.
I love it.
Love it.
I got to get some dollar bills. Make it rain over here. All right, I love it. Okay, so why are we locking this game?
You know, I've been high on Rutgers all year, and this is a rebuilding year for Washington, and Jed Fish, he's doing a great job there. You know, I just think so. The line, it's kind of 2.5. It's almost close to a pick 'em.
Yeah.
But here's the thing: Rutgers, they're doing everything that we wanted to see them do. They're at home. Washington has to travel all the way across the country. There's not a huge home field advantage in Piscataway.
Right.
I'm hoping, I'd love to see a big crowd for this game with the opportunity they have. But even without a big home field crowd and noise advantage, still traveling all the way across the country, I think Rutgers is a slightly better team.
Yeah.
I like them to win this. Obviously, I would like them to win it straight up, but I like them to win this by about a touchdown. So for me, it was pretty easy to lock in Rutgers at -2.5.
I agree with you. Under the field goal there, the intangibles here are on Rutgers' side at the very least. And usually when you see lines around 3, it's a pick'em game for them, and they're giving the 3 points to the home team. So they think this is a pick'em team or a pick'em game. And I'm with you. I think Rutgers is the better team anyway. So, hey, it's a pick'em game for them, and you're making it a lock. I love it. We've done well on Rutgers so far this year. Let's keep that train going, Steve.
Yeah. So next game, Maryland at Indiana, traveling to Bloomington, and I'm taking Indiana to cover the 6.5 points as another Big Mountain ice cold lock. I think Indiana is notoriously underrated this year. I've said it from the very beginning.
Yeah.
They're in the offseason, their over-under was 2.5, which was at one point, was absolutely crazy. I said before the season even started, Kurt Cignetti is going to run wild in the Big Ten. He's a mad scientist. He's put together basically a G5 All-Star team to come in and play, what I think is kind of an easy Big Ten schedule. They haven't played a lot of really tough teams. They did get a Big Ten win already against UCLA.
Yeah.
They're hosting Maryland, and in Maryland they're fine. They're doing okay, but they're not quite the team that they were last year. So I like Indiana by at least a touchdown. Honestly, by double digits, maybe closer to 2 touchdowns. So it was very easy for me to lock. Curtis Rourke, I think is maybe performing as the best quarterback in the Big Ten. There might be some guys that have a little more arm talent than him or whatever, but he is a master of this offense. He's doing everything right. I love this offense, the way they run the ball, the way they pass the ball. Defenses just can't figure out what to do. And, maybe Indiana's weakness is their defense a little bit, but Maryland just does not have the talent to really challenge that.
Right, I understand. And, our friend Steven's on the chat here. He's a huge Curtis Rourke fan. He's been telling everyone how great he is. And at the same time, I'm with you. I mean, it's 6.5 under the touchdown here. There's just yes, Indiana's defense maybe not super strong, but Maryland does not have the offense to keep up with the Indiana offense. It's just, I'm with you. It's not there. You're at 2 locks in a row here, Steve.
Yep.
I was supposed to be taking it easy, but you're throwing out all these locks. You're getting me excited. So you ready to go to number 3?
I got some more for you.
Oh,
so
crud.
The next game, Nebraska traveling to Purdue. I'm going to go ahead and take Nebraska to cover the 10.5 as my 3rd consecutive Big Mountain ice cold lock.
I can't handle it, Steve.
Well, okay, so let's start with this. Nebraska, I think, is just a much better team.
Yeah.
Yes, they're coming off that disappointing loss when they were hosting Illinois. They're still a good team. They still do pretty much everything right. The second half of that game, they got a little conservative, and I think we saw the inexperience of Dylan Raiola. He had a chance to win the game. He didn't make the play against a veteran quarterback, which Illinois was probably a little bit better than we all thought, and really those teams were pretty close talent-wise.
Yes.
And Altmaier, the experienced veteran quarterback, he made the difference. He made the plays in the second half when he had to. And with 2 teams who are very close in talent and close in level in play, we're not going to see that this week. Purdue is just not a good team this year, unfortunately. Nebraska is just a much better team. I like Nebraska to win this by 2 touchdowns. I think they're going to be pissed off after losing that game to Illinois. They're going to want to come in and take that out on Nebraska. So I feel great about them. I think they'll win at least by 2 touchdowns, so I feel great about them covering the 10.5.
Okay, all right. Well, man, Steve, you're 3 in a row, and I don't know what to say, and I think you got more coming. But I just want to remind everybody, Make sure you're giving this one a like. We never do that, but make sure you give us a like on this if you don't mind. We like to see likes because that's people like us.
Absolutely.
All right, it helps me feel good about myself.
Yes.
All right, let's go to pick 4 in the Big Ten.
So this one's going to be a little different. So we have Minnesota traveling to Michigan. Michigan's coming off the big win, and so I am going to take them to cover that 9.5.
Okay.
However, I'm not locking this one really just because for 2 reasons. If it was under a touchdown, like I feel very confident Michigan's going to win this game, and if the line was under a touchdown, I'd probably go with it. We didn't really see much out of Michigan's offense against USC, except for half of their yards were on 3 runs that they were able to break open, but their quarterback I think was 6 of 14 for 30 yards. Alex Orji. They could win this game by they could not throw a forward pass. Even if they do not complete a forward pass, they could win this game. But I don't see them putting up a ton of points. Minnesota, just not a great team. But they do some things. They're conservative. I think they'll protect the ball. So I like Michigan to win this. I don't know if they're going to win it by double digits. And so that's why I'm taking them to cover the 9.5, but I'm not confident enough to lock it.
Okay, I get it. Because honestly, Minnesota here, as of recent, has looked pretty good. Especially, pretty good. Maybe it's the eye of the beholder there. But they surprised me versus Nevada, and I know it's Nevada. We're talking Michigan versus Nevada, but they really surprised me versus Nevada after the start that Nevada had. Not so much that they won the game, but
Dominated.
they pretty much dominated Nevada. So we'll see here, and I get it. Michigan coming off a huge game. You don't know what kind of letdown they may have. It is still at home here, so the cover seems to make sense, but I understand at least not locking the game.
I could see this as a 13-6 game, just a low-scoring game. I feel incredibly confident Michigan's going to win, but just not maybe in those double-digit point range.
Gotcha. Okay.
So my next one, I have Wisconsin going across the country, traveling to LA to the Coliseum to face USC, and I am taking USC to cover 15.5 points as another Big Mountain ice cold lock. Boom.
Steve, that's 4 out of 5.
It is.
You're loving the lines in this week.
I'm feeling great about these matchups. And here's the thing, okay?
I've been waiting for it.
Wisconsin this year, I've been down on them all year. They're not a terrible team, but they just don't do anything well.
No.
Okay, there's nothing that they really do well. USC has a lot more talent than them. They're going across the country. They already had that tough game against Alabama early in the season. And USC, I think, is going to come in. They just played that tough game against Michigan, where honestly, I think they showed a lot in their offense going against one of the better defenses in the country. Wisconsin has nothing like that on defense, nothing like a Will Johnson, nothing like that defensive line that Michigan has. For Wisconsin to then come across the country, I think USC is going to take out some frustrations. They're going to want to show they're licking their wounds. They feel like they could have won that Michigan game, maybe should have won that Michigan game.
Right.
And they want to take it out on somebody, and it's going to be poor Wisconsin, who just does not have the talent level as them. So I like USC to win by 20-plus points.
I was just going to say, you got to be thinking 20-plus.
Just when you combine the talent differential, I think USC is going to be very motivated. And then again, that cross-country travel, we haven't really gotten to see yet. USC just traveled across to Michigan. We're going to see a lot more of that this year.
Yeah.
We the first game we talked about Washington traveling all the way to Rutgers. And so this is, traveling across the country. This is like a bowl game, except for bowl games, they go 2 weeks in advance or whatever to get acclimated. This, they're just doing a normal game week, a normal school week. So for all those reasons, I love USC to win by 20-plus points and cover the 15.5.
Yeah, and I agree. And we got commenters here agreeing with you. USC lock it down. They're giving us the lock symbols and the ice cold symbols and all that kind of stuff. And I do want to back up real quick because our good friend David Jurgensen's on.
Yes.
I know he can't always join us, and we have a lot of good friends. All of our mainstays are here tonight. The dwellers have come out in full force. We've got everybody. So welcome, guys. I won't name you all because there's a ton of you here. Squeeze money, Clint. We got them all. But I do want to ask about David Jurgensen's question and go back just to 2 picks here. I think.
Yeah. Luke
Fickell gone by 26. Steve, I know you've talked about him before. What do you think? Where are we at right here?
So here's the thing: I think Luke Fickell is a good football coach. He did a good job at Cincinnati. And I expected him to do well at Wisconsin. Well, they haven't brought in the talent, which he's more known as a talent developer.
Right.
But I honestly think their biggest problems have been their coordinators, and their coordinators just not working out. This offense, was supposed to be exciting. It was supposed to be different than what Wisconsin had done in the past, and it's been none of that.
Yeah.
They're just kind of bad on both sides of the ball. I could definitely see him being gone. I picked them to only win, I think, 4 or 5 games this year. I think they're on track for a rough season. They have another rough season next year probably in hand, because I don't see them bringing in that talent unless they make a home run hire on a coordinator.
Right.
It may be rough, and it may just show you, the difference where he was at in Cincinnati and the level of competition. Sometimes it's tough to go up to the Big Ten level. We've seen, and some people say, okay, you got to give people time, you got to give people patience. Well, look what Kurt Cignetti has done going into Indiana and has turned that around, very quickly, right away, using the transfer portal, and honestly, just schematically in coaching.
Yeah.
So it can be done, and so far, Fickle has shown that he just can't do it in Wisconsin.
Okay. All right. So we are down to pick 6 here for the Big Ten, I believe.
Yeah. Okay. So Ohio State traveling to Michigan State. I'm going to go ahead and take the Michigan State plus the 23.5.
Oh, wow.
Only because just where the line is. Ohio State, fantastic team. They've done everything they need to do. But honestly, I've seen them this year. I don't think Ohio State has fully unleashed everything they have.
Okay.
They haven't used the quarterback run very much this year, which I thought they would. They're just kind of coasting through. They're not putting their foot on the gas, and I'm not saying that is a bad thing. I think they're being smart.
Sure.
I think they're playing this season a lot like Michigan played last season.
Yeah.
So this is not a knock on Ohio State at all. I think they could beat Michigan State again by 50 if they wanted to.
Okay.
But I see them just doing enough to win, not really feeling like they need to unlock everything and use all their toolbox. And Michigan State, I think, will just kind of hang around. Their quarterback, I always forget his name. Aiden Childs, yeah, the transfer from Morgan State. And I know JEH, this is painful for him, but he's a good, solid quarterback. I think he'll make some plays. They'll score some points, and JEH saying "Go Buckeyes." I get the sentiment, and Ohio State's not going to have any trouble winning this game. They're going to win this game.
Right.
But with that point spread, I think Ohio State takes their foot off the gas. Michigan State is trying to show, hey, we belong. We have a good future in this league. And I think they keep the points within the spread.
Okay. All right. Well, that's your first underdog that you're taking. You're taking points on Michigan State. So we got a couple more left. We'll see if you have any more underdogs here, Steve.
Yeah. So my next one here, Illinois at Penn State. The line is 17.5, and I'm taking Penn State to cover the 17.5. This is one that I really struggled with. If the line was like I was thinking 12.5 to 13.5.
Okay.
Right on either side of 13 for the line. And if that's the case, honestly, especially at 12.5, I probably would have locked it. 17.5 gave me a lot of struggle, a lot of pain. So I've just kind of been looking at the Penn State team this week, seeing how they're I've been following the press conferences, the coach, what he's saying, how they're practicing, the practice reports, and those kind of things so far.
Yeah.
And honestly, so this is not the official whiteout game. However, the coach James Franklin called for whiteout energy. The fans are up for it. It's a night game at 7:30. I went back and looked because there's been some early season whiteouts the last few years. Minnesota, Iowa, Auburn, those home games, and really Penn State took it up a notch in those games. Especially when the Minnesota and Iowa games, they easily blew those lines out. And I think that the team, the coaches, the fans, everybody's basically going to treat this, even though it's not an official whiteout, like it's a whiteout. You have an Iowa team, a very solid Iowa team coming in. Luke Altmaier. Illinois team, sorry.
Okay.
I was thinking about the Iowa whiteout from a couple years ago, where they got their butt kicking that they had done to them.
You called that one too.
Yes, exactly. And honestly, the last team to come in and kind of embarrass Penn State at home was Illinois a few years back, that 9 overtime game.
Yes, that was ugly.
It was. So
not to relive it, but that was ugly.
Yeah, and David Jorgensen says Illinois has taken out 2 ranked teams. I totally get it. We saw Luke Altmaier last year. He is a much improved quarterback last year. Penn State's strength, their team, is their secondary, their pass rush, and their secondary. And that combination caused him a lot of problems last year.
Yeah.
He is a better player this year. But I just see Penn State cranking it up to that next level notch and covering that 17.5. I'm not quite confident enough to lock it, but I do I'm going to put my money on this, Penn State to cover the 17.5.
Okay, all right. When I saw that line come out, and this is the line that came out, I think, on Sunday.
Yes.
So it has not moved.
No.
I looked at that and went, that's going to be a tough line for Steve. I knew it. I didn't know which way you were going to go with it. I didn't even know if it might move a little bit, but I went, man, that is a tough line there. So I wish you luck. As everybody knows, I believe you with everything you do with Penn State. You're not 100%, nobody ever is, but you're pretty damn good when it comes to Penn State.
About 85, 90%.
Yeah.
Okay. So, and you're exactly right. When I saw that line, I was like, oh, I hate that line. And when you have that feeling, that generally means it's a fair line.
That's the fairest line. Honestly, I looked at your lines this week, and I am not surprised that so far you have, was it four? 4 locks.
Yeah.
Because early lines, I was jumping. I texted you Sunday night. I went, look at this line. Rutgers. Look at this line. Look at this Nebraska. The teams you've been on. And I went, they're getting great lines. And it was the first 3 you did here. Rutgers, Indiana, Nebraska, USC as well. I'm going, these lines are amazing. And I already got my money on them on Sunday. They've moved a little bit, but they really haven't moved that much. Rutgers hasn't moved at all. Right. I love them at 2.5.
And if you notice, all 3 or 4 of those teams were teams that Vegas was kind of down on to start the season.
Yes.
And I don't know if they've, especially at teams like Rutgers and Indiana, I don't know if Vegas has really calibrated to, how well they've played. So
yeah, good point. Good point.
Moving on, my next game, Oregon at UCLA. I'm taking Oregon to cover the 25.5. I'm probably making JEH mad again. Sorry, buddy. But Oregon just they're a very good team. They're a very solid team, talent all over, and UCLA is not. UCLA is the opposite. It's a total rebuilding mode. We've seen this year where they've really struggled. And Oregon at the beginning of the season, they kind of struggled. They had some injuries on the offensive line. They were trying to get some things together, but they've really put things together. I think that Boise game was great for them, playing a really good, solid opponent.
Yeah, kind of woke them up a little bit.
Woke them up, and then they've continued that momentum against Oregon State, against our beloved Beavs, which again, I know JEH is hurting his heart there. But I think they're going to continue to do that. I think they're going to put their foot on the gas and they're going to want to make a statement, continue to make that statement. Oregon wants to show, hey, we're in the Big Ten. We're right there with the, Michigan, Ohio State, all those power players.
Yeah.
So I don't see them taking their foot off the gas at all. And so I have them covering the 25.5. I'm not locking it just because it's such a big line.
Yeah.
Because they could win by 19, 20, 21. But I'm taking Oregon to cover the 25.5.
Okay. All right. So we've got FTD. He told us what that means. I'm not going to say it.
Yes. F the Ducks.
Yeah, well, there you go.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, I can say F the Ducks.
Yeah.
I can say whatever the hell I want to say.
Exactly.
But anyway. Dumpster fire from UCLA, according to Stephen Vitt.
Yeah. And
Are we at dumpster fire status?
I mean, they've been a dumpster fire since the press conference to start the season off Big 10 weeks.
Oh, okay. Well, then there you have it. All right.
Yeah.
All right, you got one left, Steve. So we're done with the Big Ten.
Yes.
You're bringing on the stepchild.
Yes.
Or the maybe someday be a member.
Yes.
Of the Big Ten, FSU. So I saw this line and I went, ooh, I don't know what he's going to do here. I actually would have picked this game as an other game, but I'm not going to do it because you're picking it. So go for it.
Last week, I think you were pretty shocked at my pick. I went back with the Seminoles last week.
I was very surprised, but hey, you did it right.
Yeah.
You picked the switch, man.
And that's the thing is Florida State is they are a better team than Cal. I think they're a better team than SMU. They were just so out of sorts to begin the season. I don't think the worm has fully turned. Maybe it stopped moving one way so far and it's like trying to turn around, and maybe that's just enough.
I think the ship has stopped taking on water,
yes,
but they're still getting the damn water out of the ship.
Yeah, so obviously I'm taking Florida State to cover the 5.5 at SMU. Again, just because I think they're the better team. I think maybe they've slowed the bleeding. We're trying to use up all these different euphemisms, but they've slowed the bleeding, and I think they're just a better team. Again, I think the coaching staff is more in a position right now. They know at this point, okay, we're not national championship contenders, most likely.
Yeah.
So what do we need to do to just win games, put on a positive front, and look good so that we can keep our recruits and build positive momentum for next year? Although in reality they're still alive for the ACC, but that's another conversation. But I think they're more willing to make those changes if they need to at quarterback and other positions. I think they're the better team, so I'm pretty confident going with FSU to cover the 5.5 at SMU.
Okay. Well, there you have it. Steve with 9 picks, 4 of them locks, and Steve's been hot on his locks.
Yep.
And I'll be honest, I love all your locks. I love all the lines when I saw them at first up. Still love them. I think at the very least, well, I'm not going to say it. I don't want to jinx you.
Okay.
I love your locks. I'll leave it at that. Hey, I want to, before I get into my picks here, I've got 7, and our buddy Chris always likes the over-unders, and I'm going to give him 2 over-unders tonight. I've done 1 the past 2 weeks, and I hit both of them on my over-unders, and so now I'm getting jiggy with it. I'm going to do 2 over-under
Ooh, I love it.
Yeah. But I do want to give a shout-out. Clint Moses here gave me a shout-out and said I did a nice job as a guest caller on the 365 Sports live show today. Thanks, Clint. I'm glad you either caught it live or caught it after the fact. That came together very late in the day. It was very kind of them to have me on. We were talking, of course, Mountain West and PAC, and I gave my, kind of 2 cents on where I think things are at right now. John Wilner was on before me.
Yeah, I mean,
Pretty awesome.
when you're talking about experts in West Coast football, the PAC, Mountain West, we got John Wilner and we got JY. I mean,
Well, I
right
don't know
there.
about that. I'm not there yet, but I appreciate those guys. You can check out their channel, and if you want to hear me bloviate for about 12 minutes about the Mountain West. All right, ready for the Mountain West?
I'm
picks?
ready. I'm excited.
I'm going to do things a little differently today. I usually go in order of event, right? So I pick the early games and I wait for the late games. I'm not going to do that because I'm saving the best 2 games for last. Because we've got 2 phenomenal games in the Mountain West. We've got the Boise State-Washington State game. That's at Boise. And we also have the Fresno State UNLV game at UNLV. And we're going to get to Sluka, UNLV, crazy times happening.
Yeah.
We're going to talk Sluka after I do my picks, and then we are going to get to, I saw some people asking, are we going to talk realignment and all that kind of jazz? Yes, we 100% will. We'll do that at the end of our live episode here, but we're on picks. Let's keep going on picks. So, my first one here, San Diego State traveling to Central Michigan. The line's a 2.5 line. It's a coin flip. I'm going to take Central Michigan here, giving the 2.5. This one was tough for me. I don't really like the line. It's a 50-50. I get why it's 2.5. Again, as I said to your game, the 2.5. It's a coin flip, and they're giving their home team the benefit of the benefit of the doubt, and they're making them the favorite at 2.5. That's what they're doing here. So remember, CMU only lost to Illinois 30-9.
Yep.
But they've also had some pretty bad games besides that. So they're a little bit of a hot and cold. They're like the Hawaii. What do you call them? Jekyll and Hyde. A little bit of a Jekyll and Hyde here for them. But you would think when they have a team coming from the West Coast that is beatable, they're going to be up for that game. You would think, right? In terms of the average offense, CMU is gaining 424 yards a game, and it's pretty 50-50. They have an even offense, and their QB is, I think it's Labas, is 60%. That's what you want in a quarterback. He has 6 touchdowns, but he has 6 interceptions. Their running back is by committee, which is great. They really spread the ball out with receivers and running backs. I mean, they have all kinds of different weapons. So it's not like, hey, I shut down this guy, we'll be fine. But San Diego State's defense is very good. I mean, their D has been giving up only 357 points a game, and it's pretty 50-50 there. We saw how well they played defensively against the Beavs. They did a really nice job against the Beavs on defense, not so much on offense. So let's talk about the offense. San Diego State averaging just over 300 yards a game here. I think it'll be a struggle. CMU's D is averaging 351 yards a game. So I'm looking at this going, whose offense do I think maybe is just a little bit better, like a touchdown better? I'm going to go CMU, but honestly, San Diego State could win this game straight up too. So not confident in this, but we're committed to picking every game. Thus, I'm picking the game.
Like you said, it's basically a coin flip. Both teams that they have some good things, they have some bad things. They've struggled this year at different times. I think that travel. I mean, San Diego State coming all the way across the country to Michigan. I think you have to factor that in. So I like your pick.
And so far, this Aztec fast hasn't been very fast. That could change at the drop of a hat, right? You don't know, but I'm not convinced that they're quite at Aztec fast. I think they're maybe an Aztec neutral right now. All right, let's get to my second pick. This is Steve's favorite game of the year. New Mexico versus New Mexico State. He knew where I was going.
Oh,
with
yeah,
this.
as soon as you said that.
The line is 9.5. I am taking the favorites here with the Lobos, minus 9.5. The Lobos are allowing 510 yards a game on defense. Not good.
No.
They're gaining, though, 431 yards on offense. That's second in the Mountain West. Second in the Mountain West. Of course, we know Boise and how good they are, but Fresno offense is very, very good. There's offenses putting up numbers. San Jose State's offense is very, very good. So New Mexico's second in the Mountain West in average yards per game. Dampier, dual threat, making some, kind of inexperienced mistakes, but the kid can make it happen. And their running back, Sanders, the kid that I picked early on as my MVP non-quarterback for this team, he's making it happen. He's at 4.6 yards per carry. New Mexico is 3-1 against the spread. That one was against Fresno. And I think I'm 3-1 picking the Lobos so far this year. New Mexico State is 1-3 against the spread, and I'll remind you, New Mexico State 2 weeks ago got just bludgeoned by the Bulldogs, 48-0. Well, the Lobos did a little better against that. So if you're looking at a similar opponent, the Lobos handled that game way better than the Aggies, right? The New Mexico State.
Yeah, Aggies.
And so I got to take 9.5's a little high. But I just like the offense side of the ball here for New Mexico. They're going to put up points in this game. As long as they don't shoot themselves in the foot with, 17 penalties that they had last week, they should cover this spread. So that's my take on Steve's favorite game of the whole season.
I saw the Fresno game. I mean, it was a good part of that game. And the Lobos held their own. They were very respectable, played a solid game. I think they're a better team, and I like the pick.
New Mexico State, though, Steve, a team that I have in my top 3 as being a Mountain West Conference addition. We'll get to that later. People have heard me say that before.
Yes.
I bang the same drum, and boy, let me tell you, I'm banging it daily these days.
Yep.
All right, you might be surprised by my next pick.
Okay.
I remember what I said on our recap. What did I say about the Pokes? What am I doing with the Pokes, Steve?
You're going to have a more positive attitude.
I'm bringing them up from the doldrums.
Yep.
I'm pulling them out of hell.
Uh-huh.
So here we go. Wyoming playing Air Force in Wyoming, and they're getting 3.5 points. I'm going to take, Steve, the Pokes. I know it's surprising everybody right now. I'm taking the Pokes, getting 3.5 points. Here's why. This will be a low-scoring game. These offenses will struggle to score. If you're going to give me the Pokes in a low-scoring game at Laramie, getting 3.5 points, I will take the field goal and win this bet, hopefully on Saturday. But here's the deal. So, Air Force, they're averaging 217 yards on offense per game. The Pokes, 212 yards per offense per game. So these guys, they're getting 200 yards a game on either side of the ball. 3-and-out city. We'll see what happens. Both sitting, kind of at the bottom of they're both at the bottom of the Mountain West in terms of offense. Defense, what have they allowed? Air Force has allowed 335 yards per game, which, you say, oh, that's average. Air Force hangs their hat on defense. Yeah. Okay, now they did play San Jose State, and their defense held up pretty well against San Jose State. We've seen what they can do in terms of offensive threats. WyoH has given up 429 yards on defense. But let me tell you here, Air Force, when you look at that score versus San Jose State, it was 17-7, and you go, how is it that freaking close? Because it should never be that close. It was close because the defense was able to hold back San Jose State for the most part. The only reason they scored at all was because there was an interception turnover in the red zone in their defense in San Jose State's defensive 20. So they turned it over in the Air Force's red zone, and they score a touchdown on it. So it's almost a gimme, if you will, touchdown. There were no drives in that game for Air Force over 30 yards. Not plays, drives in the entire game. And San Jose State defense ain't great. They're not bad, but they ain't great. Air Force can't score. The Pokes can't score. I'm hopeful, and you should never hope when you're betting, but I'm hopeful there's enough of a turnaround here for the Pokes offense. They can get enough field goals to win this game, something silly like 16-13.
Ooh.
And because I think it's going to be 16-13, my next pick is the under. What are we doing? Under, what are we doing? 40 or 34.5. Under 34.5. I couldn't believe it was that high.
Yeah.
I'm like, 34.5? That's cray-cray.
And you're not locking that under?
I'm not locking the under, but
Okay.
it's a pick under.
Okay.
So what do you got to say about that game?
Two teams that can't do a damn thing on offense.
Nope.
I agree with you. It's in YO. I think that kind of gives them the advantage. I'd really be interested to see if really my main interest in this game is, does Wyoming do anything different on offense?
Yes.
Again,
we shouldn't hope, but I hope they're going to.
I hope they're going to, but I really want to see that. I think was it Squeeze Money said he thinks that maybe Air Force wins 2-0 in OT. I want to see that. In the Nebraska-Illinois game, Nebraska in overtime lost 40 yards, and they were almost back to past midfield. So I want to see that situation, how that would play out, where Air Force would get a safety in overtime. That'd be very interesting. But again, two teams can't do a damn thing on offense. We'll see how it goes. I think that under, I would go way, way under. I could see this game being 6-3, 9-3, something like that.
So you think it's a lock?
Oh, yeah. Twice. Lock over twice.
Okay, well, we're
Double
not.
lock.
It's not. So we really like the under here on the Big Mountain, but that's not one of my locks. I did want to say, I did see a commenter, and I don't remember what it was, but I want to say, since we're talking about Wyoming, really quick.
Yeah.
Whaley took the red shirt. I don't know if you saw that.
I
Harrison
didn't know that.
Whaley,
So he's out the whole
star
year.
running back. He can play 4 games.
Okay.
So he'll, this will be game 5. He's not playing.
Okay.
And maybe he won't play at all. I don't know, but you can play 4
Yeah.
games. We'll get to the whole red shirt 4-game thing with our friend Sluka with UNLV as well. But I want to just mention Whaley now has taken the red shirt year.
Makes sense.
He's only able to play in 4 games. I also want to say run Scott. They better run Sam Scott in this game. Darn it.
For a running back, because they have such a short shelf life, you don't want to get too many carries. I think it makes a lot of sense because Wyoming, they just don't have a lot of goals that they can achieve at this point this year.
Yes.
Unfortunately. So it makes a ton of sense. And I would expect that he wouldn't play at all. Even like you said, he could play those 4 games, but I would expect he wouldn't, just to save the wear and tear in the body, come back next year and go for it again.
And I saw it's a potential one of those. I'm red shirt. I mean, they're 0-4.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, they're out of conference, right? They could go 7-0 in con, which they're not going to, but they could. And at that point, he pulls his red shirt and maybe does play. I'm going to wait and see if we can win a game or see what happens.
Right.
And he may have done it, so he can transfer the heck out of Wyoming.
That's
the way
true.
they're playing and the way the coaches. I mean, I don't want to. Who freaking knows? All right, we're going to my 5th pick. We've got people waiting for this pick. I've seen people chatting about it before. Washington State, Boise State, and yes, I'm taking Boise State minus 7.5. I'm confident that Boise can outscore Wazoo. I'm confident that Boise can outscore Wazoo by more than 8 points. I'm also doing we've done a preview of this show. Again, just JY.
Yep.
Did a preview of this show. I invited on Sean Goodwin, I believe it is. Goodwin. He's with the Idaho Statesman. He replaced Ron Counts, who was there. We had Ron on here for a preview. Sean has come on. I'm going to do a preview of this game. We'll post it tomorrow. Wazoo versus Boise State. So I won't talk about it a ton right here. You can hear everything we have to say on that 20-minute-ish segment tomorrow. But I think there's going to be a lot of points in this game, Steve. A lot of points. Mateer versus Madsen. What am I saying? Madsen.
Yep.
Madsen. I know that. I'm sorry, Boise fans. Madsen. You know what it is?
You're down halfway.
It's the damn apple juice.
Yep.
But anyway, I think these are 2 very good quarterbacks. You saw what Mateer was able to do versus San Jose State. Yep. Oh my gosh. He, as I said in our recap, he won that game for them. Without Mateer, Wazoo does not win that game. And for Boise, I mean, San Jose State's, they're kind of they're a one-trick pony in terms of a pass offense and not much rush offense. Boise can do both.
Yeah.
Obviously, we've got Genty for Heisman. We got him. You got Madsen, and Madsen threw some beautiful throws last week. I know they were paying Portland State, but it was good one-on-one coverage, and he's dropping the ball in beautifully. Lots of confidence. I also will say, remember what the Boise State defensive front did to Oregon. They got in the backfield. I think they had 4 sacks just in the first half. Let's look at what San Jose State's defensive front did against Washington State. The Washington State offensive line is the weakness, absolutely. So, and the weakness of the Boise State is the secondary. So if that front for Boise can get to Mateer, I think it could be a long-ish day for Wazoo. I know they're 4-0. I know we have Wazoo fans. I like Boise. I like them so much, Steve. Ice cold lock. I saved it to the end. They didn't think it was coming, but I'm locking the Broncos. This is a huge game for them, and I just like them to roll here. I really do.
I love your confidence. This is a huge game. I'm not going to be able to see this game, unfortunately. I wish I could. I'm going to be at the Penn State game, and it's a night game, and all that stuff. But huge game. Honestly, this is one of the biggest games of the year out in the for West Coast football. Both Wazoo and Boise getting lots of national attention.
Yeah.
So the winner of this game, I think, coming out of here is on a very good track for a college football playoff spot. Whether that's a Washington State trying to get an at-large now that Notre Dame had a little stumble, or a Boise who would just be another feather in their cap, another notch on their headboard. And if they can go on and win the Mountain West, this just builds their resume for a college football playoff spot. So huge game, massive game, one of the biggest games of the year. I think Boise is a better all-around team, just complete team. The wild card is Mateer for Washington State. You just never know what that guy's going to do. If they can get to him, if they can rattle him and not allow him to make those just crazy back-breaking game-winning plays, then I like the pick.
Yeah. Well, we shall see.
Yep.
The lock probably surprised some people. I'm going to go to my second over-under here, Steve, and I'm going over 63.5 with another Big Mountain ice-cold lock. I told you I love these offenses. I told you they're going to score a lot of points. I don't see why either team aren't both in the 30s. I mean, we got a 30-30, 30-40 type of thing going on here. They both should score 30 points. So I love the over here. And maybe I should have locked the under with the Wyoming and Air Force. I'm always hesitant to lock the unders.
Yes.
Because crazy things can happen, especially in college football. Oh, they score points sometimes that, like, water.
What do they say? Betting the under's like kissing your sister.
Yeah, and I don't have a sister.
You're right.
So I'd be kissing my brother.
Yeah.
I don't want to do that. So anyway, there's 2 locks on the Boise Wazoo game. -7.5 for the favorites at home, and also the over 63.5. The last one, massive game, UNLV versus Fresno State. And I'm going to call it the money line here, Steve. I'm taking UNLV on the money line. This line has dropped since the news that just broke. We're going to talk about that next. And, when the line's 1.5 and it's at like 112 and the money line's at 118, just take the daggone money line. Like, I don't need a couple cents or a couple dollars to lose on a 1 point. So just take the money line here, and it could change too. That's why I'm just like, at this point, I don't know what the hell's going on with UNLV. Just take the money line, and I like UNLV at home, and here's why I like UNLV at home. This is Keene versus the UNLV defense. That's what this is going to be, and I like the UNLV defense. Yeah, they came out kind of weak here, looking at versus Kansas. They didn't look great, but my goodness, in the second half, when they wanted to bring the pressure and get to Daniels, guess what? They threw Daniels completely out of his game. He didn't have time. And, I could see the same type of thing happening here for Fresno State with Keene. And I will also say, on the offensive side, we all know the passing numbers against Kansas were abysmal, but they have some great corners. And not a knock on the Fresno defense, but they don't have the corners of the Kansas defense. So I just like UNLV on both sides of the ball, but I am taking the UNLV defense to win this game. Yes, the Sluka issue, the quarterback issue is absolutely an issue, but I don't think that it derails them at all. Odom is a fantastic coach. He has this team playing correctly. And I'm also going to be doing, Steve, a special for this game preview. I'll record it tomorrow, so we won't get it out on Friday. I hate dropping stuff on Fridays because all we guys want to do is go out and drink at the bars. We don't want to be watching JY and Steve talk about the frickin' game. Although I know we got some Tommy Gunn and we got James. We got people that want to hear about this game. It's a hell of a game. But that won't drop until Friday. So we are going to have a UNLV Fresno State preview as well. I'm bringing on a special guest new to our channel for UNLV. Shout out to Bill, that college football guy. He helped me out.
All right.
Get a UNLV Rebel insider. I just spit on you.
Yeah, it's all right.
Insider.
I like the passion.
I'm getting excited because we're getting to the Mountain West.
The passion gets the juices flowing.
I don't know about that. Anyway, that's where I'm at. What do you think about it? I mean, you're a Bulldog guy.
Yeah.
This game, because I have picked preseason, I have picked the Broncos and the Rebels to be in the championship game. And I said in my preseason preview, I have UNLV winning this game. And quite frankly, I'm even more confident today than I was then. But you liked Fresno State being in the Mountain West Championship game, so I want to hear what you have to say about this.
Yeah, well, obviously I don't follow the Mountain West as closely as you do, especially UNLV. I didn't know as much about UNLV coming in. Everything you've said about their defense, everything you said in the preseason about UNLV's defense has proven to be completely true. They've been very impressive, and honestly, I watched a good part of that Kansas game, and I would, when you look at the game as a whole, I would classify that as a great showing for UNLV. Yes, in the first half, Jaden Daniels, he broke a couple plays, he ran a few times, whatever, but they made fantastic adjustments. And the Kansas offense was coming off of a year where they were one of the most prolific and most efficient offenses, and UNLV, especially in that second half, once they made some adjustments, they shut them down.
Yeah.
My biggest question coming into this year and the differentiator between Fresno and UNLV was, I thought the quarterback play. I put a lot of weight. You've put a lot of weight on UNLV's defense, and they've come through.
Right.
I put a lot of weight on Fresno, on Mikey Keene, on the quarterback play, the experience. I think he's the best quarterback in the conference, and I always put a lot of weight on that. So I think it's a great matchup. And so far this season, you were high on Sluka coming in, and he was really fantastic. Maybe not as much with his arm, but really with his legs. Just a great playmaker coming in. So that kind of was changing my mind. Well, now, and I know you're going to talk about this after our picks, now we have this situation with Sluka. So I don't know what to think now. I'm just I'm back to being where I was before, where I was indecisive about UNLV. Not down on UNLV, but indecisive about them. You're still strong on them because of Odom and the defense. And I'm back to being where I just don't know.
It's not a great time to lose Sluka.
No.
Versus one of the biggest games of the year in conference. They get Boise as well.
Yeah.
And so I'm not knocking the games that they've had. The huge win against Kansas. They have Syracuse coming up. So they've got so many. Their schedule is just, it's strong, very strong schedule, and they've handled it well. It is an awful time to lose your starting quarterback, no matter how close your second quarterback is to Sluka. Tommy Gunn, who is a fan of the UNLV Rebels, he says the second QB, he's going to be good. You don't have to worry about it. And Sluka struggled to throw the ball.
Yeah.
And he kind of did. But I'll tell you what, you know what they need to do, Steve? They need to cover the second quarterback in Vaz, just like they covered Sluka in Vaz.
He's slippery.
He's slippery. They'll be just fine. Just put some Vaz on that boy. And thank you, Bill. Yes, I need to stop spitting. Okay, so those are our picks, everybody. As you know, we do some recaps. So if you're interested to hear some of the games that we highlight, we'll usually do about 3 or 4 Big Ten and Mountain West. We do them at the beginning of the week, try to get them out on Mondays when we can. So we'll get them out here as well. So with that, let's get to some of our other items, Steve. Sluka, our buddy Sluka. And I'd love to hear from some of our viewers. I know we have UNLV fans on. I know Bill was from there and all that kind of stuff. New to this says JY, FSU versus SMU. Okay, I'll tell him what I would have done. This isn't an official pick. This is not an official pick, but I did mention it new to this, and I'd be taking the points with SMU. I like that. That offense is better, although they have struggled more than I thought they would. I have way more confidence with SMU than I would have with FSU. I should say, what are they? The Mustangs, because they sound similar.
The Mustangs versus the Seminoles.
The Mustangs than I am with the
Seminoles.
With the Seminoles.
Yeah.
So my pick would have gone to SMU. But hey, it's your pick, and you were right with FSU last week, so I'm not going to judge you. Well done. All right, so here we go. Sluka. Let's talk about this boy. So here's some of what I've gotten, and are we ever going to get the real story? No, you're never going to get the real. You're going to hear one thing from one side and one thing from the other side. Of course, Sluka kind of got his story out, first when he said, "Hey, I'm redshirting. I'm done. I wasn't paid the money I was promised, and because of that, I'm done for the season." Right? And so first, let me just say, and I put up a couple X today, tweets, whatever, and just said, "Hey guys, this is the new NIL.
Yes.
Like, it's good and bad for both sides. Like, this is what will happen. And people can be upset that Sluka did this, but it's part of the NIL. And you can be upset that UNLV promised a young man something and didn't follow through. It's part of NIL.
Yep.
It's the Wild West. We have done these segments several times, brought in Kevin Gold a few times, and he said exactly that. It's the Wild West. Like, there's nothing holding any of this stuff back. So what's good for the goose is good for the gander. Like, it just is what it is. So let me talk about Sluka real quick. He did not have the reporting is, he did not have a registered agent when he committed to UNLV. These were verbal promises. He said, she said, and who knows what exactly was said. And so now, of course, I should mention, he says that he was promised $100,000. That's what he said he was promised verbally, $100,000. And it came out just today, I saw, supposedly that was from actually Brendan Marion is who actually said that to him. Of course, Marion doesn't have any comment. Odom doesn't, he didn't take anything after their practice. They say he doesn't usually. He only talks on Mondays, so that's not. It is what it is. He's focused on the Fresno game.
Yep.
Like, yeah, no doubt. So this is a distraction by the way, $3,000 a month for living expenses or something like that.
I think they gave him one initial payment of $3,000, and we're discussing having recurrent payments.
So they wanted more, and he says that he was told that he's going to get $100,000 to be here. UNLV, in their statement, they say they do not engage in activities that are in violation of the NCAA pay-for-play rules. Something you have said from the very beginning. Is this pay-for-play or isn't it? We all know that there's pay-for-play is happening out there. But anyway, the rules are that it can't happen. So that's kind of where we're at, Steve. I mean, when you first hear it, you're like, well, that's a really crappy move by this kid. What the Sam Hill is he doing? And then when I take a step back, I'm just like, that's the environment we're in. So what do you think?
I know exactly who to blame.
Okay, who are you blaming?
The freaking NCAA.
Okay, well, there you go.
Their lack of leadership, their lack of action, lack of vision, just complete ineptitude has caused this environment. And you have these conflicting rules where, okay, you can't have pay for play, the school can't get involved. However, the collectives who are somewhat associated with the schools can make promises or whatever. And so you're in this situation where the coaches are recruiting the players. They're talking to them about certain things. And then it's, let me let you through this side door over here so you can get your money from the collective. And it's almost, it sets up for the player to feel like they're in a bait and switch.
Right.
Because the person they're committing to is their coach. Well, their coach can't say, hey, you're coming here, and not only am I going to give you a shot at the starting job, but you're going to get $100,000 a year. The coach can't do that, even though the coach is the one that's recruiting them. They have to go do these side deals with the collectives, and it sounds like he didn't get his in writing, whatever.
Right.
So, football and recruiting is about that trust and that relationship between the coaching staff and the player. And the NCAA has tried to come up with this dumb, convoluted process, and they only did this because they were forced to do it because they kept losing in court over and over and over again. So what you said, it's NIL, it's a stupid environment. We've talked about the employment issue, whatever, and I get it. Both sides, I don't think, want to be regular employees. But what are we doing here? Like, it's just stupid. It's $100,000. UNLV has a chance to make the college football playoff this year, so I'm not blaming the school or the coaches. I'm blaming the environment. It's just dumb. It's a stupid situation where, again, you have a school that has a chance to kind of break out, make the playoff, which can be massive money for them, massive attention. It's huge for everything that's going on with conference realignment and all that. And you have to deal with this dumb stuff just because the current situation is the Wild West.
Right.
And I think, to me, and we've done many shows about this, it goes back to just the complete lack of leadership and the ineptitude by the NCAA. They've allowed it to get to this position where we're just stupid, and it's just no rules, and it's just dumb.
Unfortunately, that is the case. People want to, like, why is this happening? How can this happen? Well, it can happen because the environment, like you said, it's just the Wild West, and the NCAA has let it be that way. And now they're playing catch up.
Yes.
And they can't catch up quick enough, and this is what's going to happen. And it's not going to change anytime soon.
And if I could offer one more thing, with my connections to the Penn State program, I've heard stories of this over the last 2 or 3 years, ever since NIL started.
Yeah.
Because Penn State's really conservative in their offers, and they have lower NIL. They're not a big player in this. But I've heard stories from where some of their players, they have offers from other schools, or they know players from other schools, and I've heard, Texas A&M. Auburn, I think Ole Miss a few years back, Colorado recently, and some other schools where the same things happened. The players were promised a certain amount of money, whoever that was, whether it was a collective or whoever, and then the money stopped coming in. The checks stopped coming in, maybe when the team wasn't doing as good. And then those players basically kind of quit and transferred out at the end of the season.
Right.
This is just a much more high-profile situation because the team is, what are they, 3-0 or 4-0?
They were off this past week.
Yeah, so 3-0 going into one of the biggest games of the year. It's the starting quarterback. So this is more high profile. But I think we've seen this happen the last few years, but it was just more quiet.
Good point. And I just want to say the Friends of UNLV, which I guess is one of the boosters, also made a brief comment. They said there was no formal offer and nothing was finalized or agreed to. Okay.
Yeah. Well, and here's the thing: if I say, "Hey Jay, if I'm going to be gone this week, if you come mow my lawn, I'll pay you $50," and you're like, "Okay," and then you come over and mow my lawn, and then I give you $5, and I could be like, "Well, there was no formal contract offer."
Right. You could.
Yeah,
for sure. I want to take this back and talk real quickly about what Coach Danielson with BSU said, with Boise State had to say. Yep. And it made some headlines there for a while because, it was taken out of context to some degree. And it was basically like these new people, and he was mainly talking freshmen. He wasn't talking about these, 5-year guys that they're bringing in from the transfer portal. But he's like, they got to earn it, and again, it was taken out of context to some degree. But it's building the environment. Danielson was talking about the environment of keeping the player because he wants to be there versus a player that was promised in a back room somewhere. He's going to get $100K and there's no agent and, all this crap that we're hearing about Sluka. What environment do you want? Now, you can't have one, all of the time. You've got to, the environment is such that you've got to be able to do both. But it kind of just reminds me of what Danielson said, and that's what this is what he was getting at in that comment. So,
but the problem is because Odom might be trying to build that same environment.
Absolutely, sure.
The position that these coaches are in, they can try all they want to build that environment, but with the rules they are in the Wild Wild West environment, it's beyond their control. So they can try and do that, and Boise, they've done a good job with that. But this could happen to any school anytime.
So let's talk about football with this. Anthony says he thinks the coach must have a lot of faith in the backup QB. If he didn't avidly go to the boosters to scrape together $100K. I mean, it could be one or the other. It could be that, absolutely. It could be the environment issue where, like, you're not better than the rest of us. Get the hell out of here. It could be the boosters don't even have $100K. Right. I know that's shocking, but that could be the case. I mean, who knows?
And it could be Coach Odom just believes, like you talked about earlier, the strength of our team is our defense. That's what's going to win. Yeah. And it's not necessarily a big deal who our starting quarterback is.
Right, for sure. So anyway, we are going to move on. I think we slaughtered Sluka enough for right now. But I am anxious to see this team under a new quarterback because their power is their defense. I'm sorry, I know I keep repeating myself. So I want to get to the Mountain West of the Pac. I know we've got some people commenting. I'm not going to go back up and read all of the comments. I just want to go over a couple things here real quick. And as everybody I think has seen, at least the commenters so far have seen, I've done some updates here both on our show and I've done some X posts and all that kind of stuff. Right now, so originally we had this MOU for 8 schools. And of course, Utah, they broke. They said, we're going to the PAC. So they signed with the PAC. So now where we're at, there's an MOU for 7 schools. And it is that all schools have to sign on. So that's why when USU was out, they broke rank, if you want to call it that. And so that whole MOU failed because it was written around 8 people. And I did say that. In the past 2 days. I also said there's more money now. So if I'm one of the 7 schools, A, I need a new MOU that is for 7 schools, and B, I want to know how we're sharing this new revenue that we're going to be having because now there's another member that has left. So that always made sense to me. Of course, everybody's going over and over UNLV and all this kind of stuff, and I'll get to that in a minute. Navarez, I just found out, is not attending the D1 conference with other commissioners. So there is a conference going on. I believe it's in Chicago, if I remember correctly. She's not attending that. I mean,
important things.
I would kind of be like, yeah, duh. Like she's trying to save her conference here, peeps. So as we know, UNLV is still analyzing things. And to me, and I said this, I think today on the 365 show that I was on, I think I said it yesterday, I think they're just looking for the best offer. I think they're like, whoever gives us the best offer is probably where we're going. Because, there's debt there. I know our friend Bill has talked about that. There's debt there with UNLV. I don't think they necessarily think they need to be in one or the other. I think they just want the best deal. Certainly up front in terms of cash, the Mountain West is going to give them way more cash right now. I mean, we saw what the PAC offered the AAC schools. A lot of people kind of laughed at that. And I really scratched my head in terms of why they were pushing the AAC schools so hard on a timeline. I still don't understand why they did that, other than they wanted to try to finalize this as soon as possible so they can move on and, quite frankly, get out for a media deal probably. But anyway, so UNLV is still analyzing, again, taking the best offers. But this does have to go to the Nevada System of Higher Education for approval. The state system has to approve a conference change. I'm not saying they won't do that. Yeah. They very well could do that, but they have to approve it. We've heard one of them saying, well, I'm not going to stop. One of the commissioners or whatever they call them say, I'm not going to stop them from doing. Well, that's one guy. I mean, we'll have to wait and see what happens here. So I'm not saying that's going to happen, but it just another piece that they have to get through. And maybe that's what's holding it up. Maybe they're just waiting for the freaking system to tell them what they're allowed to do. I don't know. Navarez did issue a statement. I'm going to read part of it here, just the very, very ending. She said the PAC wants to walk back what they legally agreed to, that being the 2024 scheduling agreement and then the poaching penalties that were associated with that. So she says they want to walk that back, and there has to be consequences to these actions. I reached out to a friend of the show, David McKenzie. I said, David.
Not just a friend, he's on our big Mount Rushmore.
That's right, he's on the Mount Rushmore. Yep. He's up there. I said, David, any chance you could do a review of this lawsuit for me? And he jumped on it that same day. He now has 2 really good posts. I've reposted them on X. If you're not on X, you got to jump on if you're interested in this stuff to see what he's saying about these lawsuits. And I talked about it some last night. It's about antitrust and it's about the penalties. The antitrust, I'll tell you, David really just says it's probably not going to hold water. I'm not going to get into the legal mumbo jumbo. He lays it out really, really well, and it's like 7 or 8 different reasons why. And he actually today put out a post that talked about a dismissal for the antitrust is pretty likely because of the laws that are in play here and the law that the PAC cited for their antitrust. So the antitrust piece looks very weak at best. I will say the penalty piece, he has said, just like we hear in the ACC case, The penalty can't be whatever we agree to. We've talked about that. It can't be just some random number. It's got to be tied to an actual loss. And he, of course, is saying there could be something there. Now, we don't know what the loss are. We don't know if there's data to support those numbers in terms of the loss. We have no idea. And anybody that says they do, they're speculating. You have no idea right now if that's the case. But he's saying there could be something there. And that's where a settlement could come into play, that there's not enough support for, those payments, those poaching penalties. And so, we're going to agree on something less. It's not going to be zero. Let me just be straight up. It ain't going to be zero. They're not going to get out of this thing. If there's anything that happens, it's a settlement, and it's something less than the $55 million right now that they have to pay. That's what it is. But this has nothing to do with the exit fees from the schools.
It's just a poaching penalty.
It's just the poaching penalty. Correct. So anything there, Steve, I kind of went through that. And some of that was a bit of a repeat from what I said yesterday. I know there was a little bit of new stuff that came out today. So anything either on UNLV or on the litigation, and I want to just revisit kind of our list of where things are going to go. I want to talk a little bit about dissolution as well. So
I just want to offer overall thoughts because I've been MIA this
that's
week.
right. I want to know what you have to say about this.
I'm just completely, utterly disappointed in how this has turned out. I put a lot of faith into the decision makers, both in the PAC and the Mountain West. That I said all along, I thought this would come to some kind of a merger, whether that meant all of the Mountain West teams or maybe some of them might get left off, because I thought that made the most sense. I never thought, the PAC's move to trying to get these teams east of the Mississippi never made sense to me, and that has failed at this point. And now they're back to, probably what they should have done from the beginning was try and do some kind of a merger with the Mountain West. So I'm just overall just disappointed in how this has fallen apart. A year ago with them coming up with this scheduling agreement, I thought was great. And then, honestly, I thought all along that this was moving on in a great path. Back in, I think it was in August, you laid out some of the reasons, and really the first alarm bells that I became aware of is when you laid out some of the reasons that they may not move forward with that scheduling agreement. And that was the first indicator for me that there was maybe some rough waters ahead. And this has just turned into from rough waters to just a complete damn catastrophe. Bad. I mean, to me, everything that has happened since, let's say about August 15th on has just been a total cluster mess. And I'm just very disappointed. It didn't have to be this way. I think some type of merger was always the best path to go. And I'm disappointed that the decision makers couldn't figure that out and make it work. And I understand there's a couple, and you've mentioned this on X quite a bit. There's a few teams at the bottom of the Mountain West that maybe the PAC didn't want to have along, that have lower spending, whatever. But I really think that they could have found a way to make this work, and kept pretty much everybody happy. And instead, they've gone for kind of the worst case scenario, which is just to poach a few, and now there's lawsuits and maybe going to be a countersuit, and it's just a big shit show. And instead of one big prominent conference, which I think that they could have done and been successful in selling that, now we have basically two partial conferences that are both weekend and not at their full power, and I'm just kind of disgusted with the whole thing.
Talk a little bit, if you will, because I'm trying to get through a couple comments. I'm writing some notes. How do you feel about Mr. Schultz right now? Because I've made a few X's about him. And I talked about that a little bit. I know people can change their minds, but I said straight up, I'm very disappointed. Kind of mirroring what you just said, echoing what you just said. Going through what he went through, but I get it. You know what it comes down to, Steve? It's just business, baby.
Yes,
it's business. But we put a lot of stock on him. We put a lot of stock on his comments.
Yeah.
We built a lot of our opinions about what was going to happen based on the decision makers, and that doesn't make us right or wrong necessarily. It doesn't make him right or wrong. It is just a little disappointing for me. It's disappointing. That's my emotion coming out, kind of with what he had said, where they had been, and now he decides to take it back to the courtroom. That's the part. The litigation is what really. I see people talking about the knife and twisting. it's one thing to take some schools, and I think we always thought, I mean, we did freaking episodes about which schools are the PAC going to take, and we nailed the first 4. We didn't take USU. I still scratch my head why the hell they're taking USU, but hey, it's a 7th member and they need 8.
Yep.
But we nailed the 4. So that part, it hurts. It's emotional for me, but I can understand that. The litigation is the twist. I don't get that.
Unfortunately, I think when you go off the rails like that, litigation is just inevitable. I don't necessarily have a comment on any one particular decision maker, other than what I said is that I'm disappointed in that all the decision makers couldn't come together. We don't know exactly what happened in those like towards the end of the negotiations with trying to renew the scheduling agreement, and if they would have been able to do that, how this would have changed. So in general, I'm not going to make any comment on any one particular person with that. I'm just overall disappointed in all the decision makers, because to me, this is almost the worst possible scenario. You had a best case and you had a worst case, and I thought we'd fall somewhere up there, and we're almost at the very bottom of a worst case scenario, and I can't believe we've gotten to this point.
Yeah, so Rumbling says USU's upping their investment in athletics. It was rumored the PAC offered the same to others. I'm not surprised USU took the offer.
Yeah.
I'm surprised they got an offer.
Well, but that was after.
It was after. It was phase 3, as I said.
Yes.
Phase 3,
right?
And they had to go to phase 3.
Right. We nailed phase 1.
Yeah.
And then the desperation. I think we're kind of seeing phase 3 as a little bit of flailing desperation after that phase 2, going for those Eastern schools, the Memphis, the Tulane, and all those, which I thought was just kind of a dumb strategy.
MK says the contract may not be legal. That is the point. I'll be honest, Steve. I think you can litigate any contract.
Yes.
Any contract can be deemed illegal for some reason.
Yes.
So I get it, MK, and I get why you're saying that. It might not be legal. Litigation is everywhere. A contract is made to be litigated.
Yes.
Period.
It's first step in litigation.
A contract, first step in litigation. So, I get what you're saying, but at the same time,
there's some speculation I've seen that the PAC teams knew the PAC knew that they thought their legal team said, hey, we can sign this contract because it's not going to be enforceable anyways. That they did it knowing, which to me that's kind of bad faith if that's what they.
Kind of bad faith, Steve?
Yeah, that's good.
You're being awfully nice tonight. And then the other one, JEH says, why did Gloria demand over double the scheduling agreement, or over double for 2025? So there's rumors out there that she was asking, or the Mountain West was asking for like $30 million. Like it was an exorbitant amount. And I would say, I don't know, but it frustrates me when I see people combine the 24 agreement with what was being negotiated. Well, guess what? What was being negotiated didn't happen. So who cares? They walked away from the table. You can't use that to say the 24 agreement had what did they call it? I said it on the podcast. They were holding us at hostage, and they were whatever. I don't remember the words, the stupid words.
They had them at a time when they were vulnerable.
Yeah, they were vulnerable. They took advantage of us in our time of need and all that.
That stuff
that
you
was
say during
then.
litigation.
That was I know it's what you're saying, but I'm saying that was 2024. Don't use the negotiations of 2025 to murk the waters. And I saw John Wilner do this today.
Yeah.
And I called him out. I'm like, John, don't use the 25 negotiations to talk about the 24 contract. Two completely different things.
Well, to JEH's point, because I've been very positive and just positive about Commissioner Navarez, her leadership, and Schultz and the people in the PAC. Again, I think there's blame to go around. I still don't fully. You laid out some really good reasons, and so on one hand I get it, but I feel like they should have been able to come up with a way to move forward with extending the scheduling agreement, which I think would have laid a better path towards some kind of a merger. And so I'm not saying it's Gloria's fault. I'm not saying it's Schultz's fault. All together,
right?
They didn't come together like I think that they should have. And if they would have extended that contract, I think they would have a total different relationship. Once that broke apart, it was like, okay, now we're at war. Now we're adversaries. We went from being partners to adversaries. And to me, that was the inflection point where things went to shit.
Yeah, and MK mentions if the contract is legal, then the Mountain West gets a big payday, and they earned it. I think they're going to get a big payday, frankly, no matter what. If it settles, they're going to get a decent chunk of money. And even outside of the poaching penalty, the exit fees and the bylaws, but you can use the same argument about unenforceable penalties, because that's exactly what the ACC is doing. And I said it yesterday, I'm going to say it again. This is not the only lawsuit. Yeah. There's going to be a countersuit. I said it on 365 today as well. There's going to be a countersuit from the Mountain West. I just don't know if it's the Mountain West to the PAC, or will the Mountain West attack members?
Maybe.
That could be very interesting if that actually happens.
It could be very interesting. And the thing is, like you talked about UNLV, we may not be done with members leaving and go to the PAC. So are they having those conversations now? And are UNLV and like Nevada part of those conversations? And then what happens if they leave?
This is the PAC a year ago,
yes,
all over
it's
again.
All over. Yes, this
all
the
over
same
again. The damn PAC.
That's why I'm so disappointed, because I thought we learned those lessons, and everybody.
No.
I had too much faith. I had way too much faith in it. Yeah, I know.
Business, baby.
Yeah.
Anyway, I want to go back. There was some talk about a merger. Why don't they just merge? And I see this a lot. Well, why don't they just merge? Why don't they just merge? And I said today, here's the deal with this. Here's the deal, Steve.
Yep.
The Beavs and the Cougs, to a lesser degree, would never merge with all 12 teams. They're not going to do it. I'm not saying this to knock the Beavs, but they think, and they are right now, a power team.
Right.
They will not relegate themselves. They will do everything they can until they are relegated. Yes, the new PAC is a G. It's a G6. Is it the best of the rest? Guess we'll find out. But it's a G. And I've seen people, in a few years, they're going to get their power back. No, they're not going to get their power back. We're moving to a power 2. We've talked about that all the time. By no means is the current power 4 going to allow a new conference to be a power conference or an autonomous conference. It ain't going to happen. The Big Ten and the SEC control everything that's going on right now. Steve has said that for a long time, and that's the fact. They will never be a power conference. And if I may add, this is a 5-year conference. This is to get to 2030. This is to make a best of the rest to get to 2030 for the next round of realignment. And realignment flows downhill. What's happening right now is because of the USC-UCLA change that was announced, 2 years ago? We're just now having this problem because of that. Was the beginning of this realignment phase. And even this right now with the PAC, once this gets figured out, and if the Mountain West doesn't dissolve, guess what the Mountain West is going to do? They're going to go down and try to pull a few more. Yeah, New Mexico State has already talked to the Mountain West about joining the Mountain West. So guess who's getting screwed again, Steve? Conference USA.
Yeah.
So anyway, I went on a bit of a tangent, but that's just how it is, man. That's how it is.
And we've talked about this before, and you can go back farther. The USC-UCLA was in response to Texas and Oklahoma going to the SEC, which is a response to this or that. And I think, to your point of the PAC not gaining power status, I think it much more likely that in a few years we'll see the ACC lose their power conference status, and maybe even the Big 12, and it finally be to where we've said, well, I've said, and I think you agree, recognition of it's the power 2, it's the Big 10 and the SEC, and it's everybody else.
Bill is correct. The lawsuit is a required step to negotiate the fees. I would say to renegotiate the fees. They've already been negotiated. Yeah. To renegotiate the fees. You're exactly right. John reminds me that my beer is empty. It's almost empty, so we're going to have to wrap up here shortly. And then, that college football agrees it's a P2 world. And TV money, absolutely. I want to get to one last thing, and then we're going to wrap this up. And I see that P2, M3, G5. I've seen that before. Okay, whatever. I'm sorry, Rumblings. I appreciate your comment, but I don't. I just think it makes conferences feel bigger than what they truly are, in my opinion. But that's okay. I did see something from Anthony real quick about the backup to UNLV. I don't have a lot on him. I haven't. Today was a whirlwind for me through work and then getting called to be on 365 and finishing this prep. And I haven't had a chance to really dive in and do a lot of research on the backup. But I do know they brought in 2 transfers. And when they did that, it was a competition. And Sluka did kind of win that competition. If Tommy Gunn is still on, or Bill, or anybody that is UNLV fan, maybe you can help the chat out a little bit and talk about the backup. Unfortunately, I don't have a lot of I don't have a lot of information for that individual.
I want to say something.
Yes.
And it kind of continues with what you were saying. So rumblings, he makes a couple points there. You know, he talked about the P2, M3, G5, which, yeah, may work out like that. But he says it was silly to think that a merger was ever going to happen. And that goes back to what you were saying, where the Beavs didn't want to just merge or become part of the Mountain West. Well, here's the thing. All these teams have already turned them down. Yeah. Memphis, Tulane, South Florida, I think North Texas, all those other AAC teams. So
it was 3. It was I think the only true offers went to Tulane, UTSA, and Memphis.
Okay.
Yeah.
So,
but to your point, yes. They've and the AAC has come out with this. We're stronger together. We're sticking together.
Yes.
So yes, to your point, yes.
Right. So they have to get to at least 8 teams, and they maybe want to go farther. So what is going to end up happening? I mean, they've already stolen 5 teams from the Mountain West.
Right.
If they want to get to 8 teams, there's probably more. Unfortunately, for our Mountain West fans, there's probably more. And so, what are they going to end up being? It's going to end. That conference is going to end up being the Beavs and the Cougs plus a bunch of Mountain West teams, which they could have done that and saved a hell of a lot of money a long time ago.
Right. Absolutely. So I want to get to dissolution last, and just names. And I talked about this yesterday. Where I sit right here, right now, today, and again, I said this on the 365. I think a dissolution of the Mountain West is very unlikely. Remember, the PAC dissolved to 2, and they had their war chests to do what they're doing. They had 2 years to do this. If we go to 5, and I see Mr. Ed mentions 5 teams, and let's just assume both Air Force and UNLV leave, or UNLV in Hawaii. There was new rumorings about Hawaii today. Hawaii has was it their governor? They're outside third party trying to lobby the PAC to get Hawaii to the PAC.
Hawaii has no TV value.
And here's why. Because they want to be with Gonzaga. If Gonzaga goes to the PAC, they want to be the football team that is the Gonzaga football team.
Okay.
To me, that's why they're doing it.
Yeah.
They don't want it to be UConn. Why go to the freaking East Coast? Yeah. We're right here, baby.
Yeah.
So, okay, maybe if they're going that route. But anyway, I wanted to mention that anyway. You still have 5 teams. And exactly right, AMAC. They have until 2028. They're going to get a 2-year window in 2026. So in some ways, well, in a lot of ways, this is better than what happened to the Beavers and the Cougars, okay? This is way better because they still have football season 25. Well, they have the entire 25-26 school year to figure things out. They don't lose the schools until 26. By then, hell, you can have another 8 to 10 teams. You don't need the 2-year reprieve because you've got a reprieve right now. So from a timeline standpoint, it's better than the PAC had. Let me rephrase that. It's better than the Beavs and Cougs had, okay? You don't even need a scheduling agreement, for crap's sake. You can get this figured out, okay? So the dissolution smoke, for me, I don't buy into it. 5 teams. You need the 5. You could do it with 4, but you need the 5. I'd love it to be 6 and 7. 7 would be amazing. All right, but you need the 5 to stick together, and I think they're okay to move forward. They have a 1.5 to 2 years to figure this out, and they're going to have a pot of money to help people out with, both short-term for their members and to bring people in. I agree. We know there's been reporting New Mexico State has already talked to the Mountain West. We know that for a fact. To me, that's an easy add. I've been talking with a friend on X about UTEP. He's big into UTEP. I've invited him on. We'll probably do a UTEP-centric episode. From what he has told me, UTEP has been sitting on their hands. They have not reached out to the Mountain West. I don't know that to be a fact yet, but that's what I've heard, that UTEP hasn't done much. So they're not like New Mexico State. Take them both. get into Texas. Texas State is huge. I listed my 3 yesterday for the PAC. UNLV is number 8 if they take it and won it. Texas State should be your number 8 if UNLV backs out. You should go hard after Texas State. If I'm the Mountain West, I'm doing the same thing. You want to keep UNLV, and then you want to go after Texas State. That doesn't mean anybody's going to get Texas State. They might stay in the Sun Belt. But if you can combine Texas State with another Texas school or 2, you're doing really well for either conference. I don't care who you are, the PAC or the Mountain West. You get Texas State and another one, you're doing mighty good. So, you know, there's a lot of smoke, a lot of doom and gloom. It's the same doom and gloom everybody had a year ago with the poor Beavs and Cougs.
Right.
They're never going to be able to do this. They're not going to do this, and they're not going to do that. And look at where they are. Yep. The Mountain West needs to just ride through this. You kind of knew it was coming. You know, we talked about a merger. It is a merger. It's just not a full merger. Right. You know, it's going to be 6 Mountain West teams and 2 PAC teams.
Right.
It's half a merger, right? And in my opinion, if you're taking 6 and you're paying those fees, forget this litigation for the time being, that's a hell of a lot of money to not just be like, hey, I'll just take 2 more teams or 3 more teams, and I'm not going to pay anything. Like, it's asinine to me. I still don't understand it. But anyway, I wanted to talk a little bit about that. Everybody knows, I keep saying this on X, Sac State, Sac State. Apparently, they've also reached out to the Mountain West. They want to go FBS. It's a perfect market for them to get back into. If you can keep 6 schools, I'll use 6 because then you only have to add 2. You keep 6 and you can add Texas State and Sacramento State. Forget they're an FCS. You got to look at markets. You got to look at where they're at. That is 2 humongous ads. Is it the Mountain West of old? No, but it's still pretty damn good, Steve.
AJH is asking about, was bringing up, well, they don't have a media deal yet, and what about the media deal? Well, here's the thing from my perspective as an outsider. The Mountain West is never going to get a media deal that's on par with with a power conference, with a Big 12 or whatever.
No.
What they need to do is survive and have entertaining football, and they can put together a media deal, even if they do something similar to what they have now, where TNT has a part, CBS Sports has a part, Fox Sports has a part. They can put together a media deal that's on par with what they have now. They can do that if they can survive and make sure they have an entertaining product. And we've talked about the schools that they could potentially add. They don't need, the thing with the PAC is the PAC wants to continue to be a power conference. Like you've said, they're just not there at that point, but they want to look like it. They want to feel like it. They want to be able to act like a power conference. So they're looking at bigger markets to have a bigger media deal that's competitive with the Big 12 and, possibly the ACC or whatever. They're looking at 2 different things. So I have complete faith if the Mountain West can survive and add some of these teams we've talked about, that they will be able to put a media deal that will be able to keep those schools basically competing at the level they have been competing.
The Mountain West media deal right now isn't great.
Right.
It's not great.
Exactly.
If they can put together, to your point, a decent, you bring in Sacramento State in that media market, and I know we're just making stuff up right now. I wouldn't be surprised if they have at least a neutral media deal.
Right.
Well, you're not going backwards then. You're not going forwards.
Right.
But you're certainly not going backwards. So I don't know what the new media deal would be, JEH. I have no idea. I have no idea what the PAC media deal is going to be. But we'll have to wait and see how that works. Rumblings, real quick. They have to take more than 2. You need 9 votes to dissolve the conference. So, 7 ain't going to get you there. Even if it's 7 plus Air Force bolting to the American.
8 plus Air Force.
They're not going to get, they need 8 plus Air Force, correct. So they need to take a heck of a lot more, and I see absolutely nothing out of the PAC that says they're going to take 3 more schools from the Mountain West. They don't want 3 more schools from the Mountain West. They want 1. That's it. We all know who they want. We just don't know if they're going to get them. So anyway, all right, Steve, we have talked a lot. I knew it was going to be a longie. We had so much to talk about. Anything you want to talk about before we end?
So we're right now we're getting so wrapped up, and we continue to be wrapped up in this realignment and all that stuff. JY's done a great job of covering the Mountain West and the PAC, but I want to just say we're having one of the best college football seasons already. We're just now into it, and really this is one of the best. The Big Ten, a lot of exciting things. The games coming up with the new the new teams coming in. That USC and Michigan game was awesome. There's a Oregon Ohio State game coming up. The Mountain West games. It's
awesome.
This might be the best season of college football the Mountain West has ever had.
I know. And it's a complete distraction of it.
Yes.
We're talking about Genty for Heisman.
Right.
We're talking about getting that CFP spot. Wouldn't it be ironic if we get the Mountain West, the conference that isn't the best of the rest,
right,
but they get that damn CFP spot? Wouldn't that be pretty freaking ironic? And I hope it freaking happens. Sorry, that's Mountain West JY coming out right there.
Yeah, and so that's the thing is, let's still try and have fun. There's a lot of great football out there. We have some awesome games, and when we pick these games, those two games you ended with are fantastic. Some of the best games in the Mountain West this year. So yes, we will continue to focus on this. We'll keep you up to date. JY's been doing a great job, and we'll also be following the ACC and all that stuff, Florida State. But the main thing right now is college football is back. We are in the middle of a great season. Let's have fun. We're going to keep making picks. We're going to try and make you some money. We're trying to make us some money. So let's just have fun and watch some great college football.
Can I mention one more thing
Yes.
about realignment?
Sure.
Because that college football, this will be the last thing. We appreciate all your comments. We could go all night,
Yep.
but my wife won't allow it. We're already past our hard shut-off time. But that college football site says they can't dissolve JY. OSU and WSU sue the departing 10 to prevent them, this is the PAC a year ago, to prevent them from doing the same thing to the PAC-12. That's the legal precedent. Very interesting. The only thing I would say to that is the bylaws for the Mountain West are clearer than the PAC bylaws. So there is a difference. I appreciate you saying that, and I'm not saying that's wrong. I will say the bylaws are different, and they're clearer with the Mountain West. And to that end, and I'm going to do research on this, and we'll get information out to you guys, I have not seen anything confirmed yet that notices and the $5,000 has actually been given to the Mountain West by these 5 schools. If they have not done that, they are still voting members. If they have done that, and I've seen some rumorings that it's in the lawsuit, and I have not yet had a chance to read that whole thing, because as I said, I've been a bit busy.
Yes.
But I will read that. But I heard somebody say that it's actually in the lawsuit that they did notify the Mountain West. If they did read it, and if you guys have read the lawsuit, but if they did notify, that is huge. And that tells me the Mountain West will not dissolve. If notice has been given to the Mountain West by the 4 or 5, I don't know about USU, but the 4 or 5 schools, there's no dissolution going to happen because their votes don't count anymore. That is in the bylaws as well. So I'm going to do more digging on that. I'm going to read the litigation because I haven't read any litigation in a while, Steve.
Yeah, it's fun.
Time to do it again.
We read all that litigation in the PAC last year, and it meant nothing.
And so Bill says, I thought they gave notice and it was listed in the lawsuit, and he did. I'm hearing that as well, Bill. If you saw it, that's great news for the Mountain West because they don't have a vote anymore to dissolve. That's great news for the Mountain West. And I'm going to read that. We'll do an update specific about that lawsuit. There's things that I need to dig into. I just don't have enough damn time in my schedule. So with that, hey, we'll see you guys next. Wait a minute. I don't want to say that yet. I want to say, give this sucker a like. Subscribe if you like our content. This is my ending.
Genty for Heisman.
Genty for Heisman. Thank you, AAR. Thank you for sticking around. Thank you, Day One Rob, and everybody else. We really appreciate our dwellers, and we appreciate an awesome live show tonight. We'll see you next time on the Big Mountain.